Here is Steve Mnuchin on ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos. And there's two things that we should talk about. We're going to, next up, regardless of what happens with healthcare, there's going to be an attempt for massive tax reform, or so-called tax reform. And when they tell you they're going to cut taxes, but they're also going to get rid of deductions and loopholes, all you need to do is go back to 1986, the Ronald Reagan omnibus tax cuts. There was actually two rounds of tax cuts, one in, I think it was 81, one in 86. But
81.
The big issue was, or the big sell was, all right, we're going to cut tax rates, but we're getting rid of a lot of deductions. And literally on the next day, they started to put the deductions back in. And within a year, basically, all of those deductions were back in place, and the tax cuts were maintained.
Do you remember the fun little side history about this, though?
Fun...
Bill Bradley wrote this bill, essentially, like the original thing that got passed, which really was the tax cuts traded for genuine closing loopholes. And he claims that this is one of the reasons that Donald Trump went bankrupt one of his first times, because he couldn't, because basically it hit real estate developers actually specifically pretty hard. It got rid of a lot of their loopholes and deductions. And he said his bill basically helped expose Trump in the 80s.
Ah,
yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Well, here is Steve Mnuchin. And also know that the IRS, as part of Trump's mandate to review all tax regulations, the IRS has come out with, and supposedly adopted, or I should say a Treasury report has adopted new regulations for the IRS that they think the IRS should adopt. And it turns out that there are 8 suggestions, 7 of which are directly taken from a Chamber of Commerce document in May. But here's Steve Mnuchin saying, trying to tamp down the rumors that Steve Bannon wants to increase taxes on the wealthy.
The website Axios reported that Steve Bannon in the White House is advocating a 40% top tax rate. He wants a 4 in front of it, maybe even higher than 40%. Is that idea actually on the table?
No, it's not. I have never heard Steve mention that. It's another example of a false leak that's being reported. I think it's very clear, we have a proposal out there that the administration has put out with a top rate of 35%, where we reduce and eliminate almost every single deduction. So that means that people who are in the high tax states will have no tax reduction.
Yeah. Steve Bannon doesn't do much of his talking around Steve Mnuchin, I bet. But who knows?
Yeah, I support a 40% rate.
Whatever.
Do that to hurt the Jew the next time he's at Stephanopoulos.
The funny thing about that rumor to me was that it was meant to seem so bombastic, like, oh, there's Bannon with the crazy idea again. But isn't that right that it's only increasing it by like 0.4% to get to 40%?
Well, it's a couple of percentage points.
A couple of percentage, but I think it might be if Bannon is leaking it himself, it's because he is. He might be somewhat more intelligent than average in this White House, and I think at a certain point you have to realize this works for our cults, but this whole policy agenda of populist neo-fascist white nationalism, the populist part isn't happening. So I might need to protect my personal brand moving forward. So maybe I should throw some proposals out there that aren't going to go anywhere, but make me look like I'm staying true to the kind of nationalist progressivism or whatever, whatever he was trying to sell during the campaign.
Hi, folks. Sam Seder here. We still need your help on our Patreon page. YouTube ads have come back, but not nearly as much as we had before. So if you can help us out, any little bit helps. Head over to our Patreon page right at this URL, and you'll help us keep helping you by making videos?